here with another review for you, and it is spooky season, so of course today I am talking about Hocus Pocus 2. I was a huge fan of the original film. I always have fun with it during spooky season. I love the characters. The Sanderson sisters are great, memorable. Their dynamics together, some funny lines and jokes that are just so memorable and great. And all the reviews I had heard were saying that if you were a huge fan of the original film, then you will love this movie. And I'm sad to say I did not love this movie. I just found it to be very corny, very cheesy, and sometimes that's fun, but this was just very much felt like for little kids. Like, while the 93 film felt very much more of a balance between for little kids and adults, and there were kind of things in there for several age ranges, this felt very much for very young children and just very cheesy, corny humor, kind of modernizing jokes, you know, of course, of things today, which just felt a little bit forced. I think people kind of doing weird things with kind of trying to do this old English kind of Salem-y accent, like, you know, kind of trying to put on a bit of an accent when they were talking, but then also kind of muddling it in with a modern American accent. It just was a bit jarring. Like Billy, Doug Jones, I don't remember Billy really having that much of kind of old English kind of verbiage, and he was doing that a lot in this movie. Same with young Winifred. She, like, even the three of them as little kids were all talking very modern, but just throwing kind of old, ye old kind of English words in there, and kind of trying to put on this kind of British draw on some of their dialogue, but then also kind of weaving in and out of that with like an American accent, and it just felt very weird and jarring. Yeah, the jokes were just a little bit too corny for me. You know, I was just kind of reminded of when I play with my 4-year-old nephew and I'm pretending to be some silly character and I'm going, oh, I'm going to get you, and like just being extra animated for him. That's like what Tony Hale was doing in this movie. So like what a lot of the actors were doing in this movie, just kind of these over exaggerated, oh, like you're playing with a young child, you know, and just doing these over exaggerated voices and motions. And that just felt kind of very corny. The acting just felt very much like a Disney Channel original movie. So not to say that, you know, the original film had Oscar-worthy kid performances, but they felt like real kids. They felt like real teenagers. They felt more real in their performance than these kids in this movie. They felt just kind of very much overacting and over-exaggerated and just very kind of corny. Some of the modern elements they brought, I think, were kind of fun. Kind of the modern versions of, you know, their brooms. You know, instead of a vacuum, Mary has the 2 Rumbas and Sarah has a Swiffer. Like, that was kind of a fun thing. Instead of kind of tricking them the way the kids did in the 90s, they're tricking them in different ways. And that stuff was kind of a fun, nostalgic thing, but I think it got kind of old after a while because, you know, I think they were playing them kind of knowing about modern things a little too much, so then to go to them being dumb and not understanding a modern thing just felt like a little too much. I know they did that a little bit in the original film, like, you know, they didn't really understand the concept of a road and thought like headlights were the sun, but then you have Winifred making a joke about, I'm gonna pull you over and see if you have your driver's permit. So you did have a little bit of that, them making jokes about things related to the modern day, but then being confused about things from the modern day. But it wasn't as forced as this movie was trying to do, and I don't know if they were trying to do that as a callback or if they just thought it was gonna be funny and cute. But after kind of the 3rd time that they were tricked with something, but then also made a modern joke, it was just like, it was a little just too cheesy and corny for me. Things I did like, I will say, I really liked the dynamic of these 3 actresses. Them being back, they still kind of have that same vibe and energy with each other, and that was really fun. While I did not like the kind of weird kind of way they were trying to talk as kids in this kind of Salem time, I did like getting to see that aspect of how they got their powers and see their dynamic as little kids and see kind of the beginning of their journey and their story. I liked getting to see that side of it, seeing the witch they met and how that whole came about, getting the book and all of that. So I liked seeing their little origin story. I thought that was fun. I liked Billy kind of trying to set the record straight on him and Winifred, and we get to see a young version of him. And that Doug Jones is back. I love him. So I'm glad he's back. I know he talked about he's wearing the same exact wig he wore in the '93 movie. So yeah, I like that he's back. That made me just sad and made me miss the original characters, because I would have loved to see a legacy sequel with these characters. See Max and Danny and Allison all come back, and, you know, maybe Max and Allison are married, and, you know, and Danny, and then something following their kids, I think would have been a fun thing. Yeah, to see those characters back. And I think I read somewhere that Max, the actor who played Max, actually would have loved to come back for a sequel. So I'm really bummed that, you know, just seeing Doug Jones come back just made me sad that, like, they didn't tell that story. And now we're just following these new characters who, frankly, were not very interesting. And, you know, I didn't really care too much for. However, I will say I did kind of gravitate towards their kind of friend breakup kind of story, because I've been in situations like that with friends where there's this kind of miscommunication, that you've grown apart as friends, but, you know, either one is kind of just has their own idea of what happened, and so you don't really talk it out, and, you know, it's just kind of friend drama. I've been there, so I definitely felt that and related to that. So I like that they threw that kind of real element of things that kind of happen, particularly in high school with friend groups. And so that felt very real and relatable. So I liked that they had something like that in there. I don't know if I like Sam Richardson's character as kind of this undercover villain, and then to try to kind of redeem him by the end. That all felt a little too forced. And Sam Richardson just seems way too nice to kind of even be doing that. I just felt very uncomfortable when he was kind of doing bad things, because he just seemed so nice, and it was just it didn't work. He wasn't the right person to kind of play that energy. So that was kind of just jarring. Tony Hale was just a lot. Like I said, he's just kind of overdoing it a little bit, and that he just made it feel like this kind of goofy, cheesy kind of little kids movie. So yeah, I really wanted to love this movie, but overall it just felt very corny and cheesy, and just not holding up to the original film. I've seen some people talk about the original being very overrated, but I think it was great for its time. I think it had a great mix of things for all ages. And this movie just felt very much for kind of a very, very young set. I will say I did appreciate kind of the little subtle mix of diversity in there. They had, you know, a gay couple on the couch. I think they had a transgender teacher. They had drag queens in there, and just representing people in the world. Like, they didn't really call too much attention to those things. They just showed them. And, you know, I think that's a fair thing, because I think a lot of people of a bunch of different backgrounds just want to be shown existing in the world because they exist in the world. And so to kind of just have these people in here, I think that's kind of good representation in terms of not just throwing it in there to check a box, but just having it in there, showing these people exist in this world like they do exist in the actual world, and not making a big thing of it. And so I appreciated just kind of that subtle, like, all kinds of people in this movie, all kinds of people in this town, not a big deal. So I appreciated that. But overall, I did kind of I liked the childlike story, the child story of the three witches. I liked having that, so that it kind of gave an emotional payoff with the three of them by the end. So I really liked that kind of final moment with the three sisters, and that kind of emotional thing that happens there. But overall, just, I really wanted to love this movie, and I just really thought it was just too kiddie, too corny for me, and way cornier than the original film. And so yeah, it was a bit of a letdown. There were things I enjoyed in it, but overall just not as much fun, and I didn't love it as much as the original film. So that's it. Those are my thoughts on Hocus Pocus 2. What did you think? Please let me know in the comments below. Like, share, subscribe, do all of the things. Check out the It's a Wonderful Podcast Patreon. Check us out on Twitter at It's a Wonderful One. Find me on Twitter at Jeannine Devine _. Find me on Instagram at Jeannine Devine, on TikTok Jeannine Devine. So yeah, guys, thank you so much for checking out another review, and I will see you in the next one.